This is for Kendall. The story of redemption begins in Eden with paradise lost. Adam and Eve had been placed on a mountaintop garden, a beautiful world full of trees, river flowing through it. But when they sinned, they were banished. And at the garden gate, God killed animals and taught Adam and Eve to do sacrifice. And there, for the centuries that followed till the flood, men would bring the lamb, kill him at the garden gate. And the flaming sword of the cherubim would light the fire. And the animal would be taken wholly to God, surrendered to God's glory. And beyond was the wilderness. When the flood came, all of that was lost. The guarding cherubim, the place to worship, the sacramental trees. But after the Exodus, when God brought his people to Mount Sinai, God came down again on a mountain and revealed himself in fire and glory and thunder and lightning. But it was not like Eden, because this was a wilderness, and this was frightening, this was terrifying. Though there was a stream that poured forth from the mountain, and God's people did assemble at the bottom, and there was a place of sacrifice beyond the camp, and yet not quite to the top of the mountain where the Shekinah glory loomed over the congregation. And Moses and Aaron, the elders of Israel, went beyond the point of sacrifice and came close to God, and there they ate and drank, and they saw the God of Israel, and he did not lay his hand upon them. When Moses returned finally from Mount Sinai, having seen a heavenly vision of what God had in mind, he laid out the plans for a tabernacle, a movable tent, mobile home, we would say in our generation. And it echoed what they'd experienced on Sinai, which echoed what Adam and Eve had lost in paradise. As you came to the tabernacle, you entered a courtyard surrounded by white billowing walls made of linen over boards, clouds as it were. And the first piece of furniture you came to was an altar. The gate of the tabernacle, you still had to offer your sacrifice to God. And being cleansed by the blood of the Lamb, you were able to pass beyond that. As a priest, you came next to the laver, a fountain of water. The laver was made from the brazen mirrors that the women who assembled at the tabernacle doors had used for mirrors. So now you could look into the water and see yourself, see who you really were, and wash and cleanse yourself. Beyond that was a tent structure that had two rooms. The first was called the holy place, and in here there were three pieces of furniture. On your right, a table of showbread and show wine, symbolizing God's provision for his people. 12 pieces of bread stacked bagel-like, and upon them little spoons containing incense. On your left was the candelabra, menorah, lampstand, with 7 blazing oil lamps. It was made in the fashion of an almond tree. Before you was the altar of incense, from which a cloud of incense rose as prayer before God. And so we have the food of the garden, the food at the midpoint of Sinai. We have the blazing light. We have the clouds. And beyond that, the veil. And through this veil, the high priest could enter only once a year, on the Day of Atonement. But beyond that was the Holy of Holies. And in that one piece of furniture, the Ark of the Covenant, well, 2 pieces. For on top of the Ark was the mercy seat. Within the Ark was the law of God, the 10 Commandments that Moses had brought from Sinai. Above, on the mercy seat, the cherubim, and above that, the Shekinah glory, the presence of God. And so God would look down upon the tables of stone, the covenant document, the law he had given to Israel. And the great danger was that he would look upon the demands of his law, look upon his people, and be angry and leave. And so every year the high priest brought the blood of the goat of atonement and sprinkled it there on the mercy seat, so that God would be propitiated and be content to stay with his people. Now all of this was in type and shadow. There were lots of priests, and they had to be replaced because they died, or they apostatized, or they got tired and went home. There was never one priest who could do it all. There was lamb after lamb, bull after bull on the sacrificial altar because no lamb or bull could ever take away sins. And as time went on, the tabernacle decayed, fell apart. Eventually the ark was taken out of it and lost for a while. And this whole system collapsed because it was never meant to be permanent. It pointed beyond itself. It pointed back to paradise. It pointed back to Mount Sinai. But it pointed forward to Christ. For it is by His blood we enter the presence of God. It is by His sanctifying Spirit that we're cleansed and able to come to God's presence. He feeds us with Himself, bread and wine, fellowship with Him. He is the light of the world. It is He who offers prayers on our behalf. And it is in Him that we draw near to God, for He is the propitiation for our sins. Not for ours only, but also for the sins of the whole world.